Well, hello again. This is Piers Dormeyer. Welcome to Rise Over Run. Um, Coming to you with Derric Stull from Atlanta with Ridge Valley Exteriors. Derric, welcome aboard. You're big in ATL. You're all over the Southeast. Big in North Carolina. Talk to me about Ridge Valley, your area of operations.
Yeah, well, Pierce, thanks for having me this morning. Excited to be here. Always really enjoy cutting up and laughing. You're a pretty funny guy, man, and so I always know we're gonna have a good laugh here over the next 45 minutes to an hour for sure. But 11 plus years based out of Atlanta, really a suburb on the north side of Atlanta in Kennesaw, Georgia. Really heavy in the southeast, and been really blessed to work as far as Spokane, Washington, all the way over to the other coast on the east side, and kind of almost everywhere in between in our roofing career. But our main focus is really, if you look at the Tennessee quadrant down through Florida, kind of up the coast into the Virginias and Carolinas is really our focus point in terms of where we operate day in and day out.
Yeah, right on, man. Yeah, you're all over that kind of mid-Atlantic all the way down. So you've got an interesting story. Us connecting a few times. Not your typical path to the roofing industry by any means, but I want to get into that. I want to hear that. I think that's really cool for folks that have come from the outside and in. And but start from the beginning, man. Where you from? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I'm a Midwest boy. Grew up, I was born in Ohio, Bowling Green, Ohio. There's a university there. It's about everything anybody knows about Bowling Green.
Hmm.
And my dad was a sales leadership guy for the forklift industry and ended up retiring with Nissan on the heavy industrial side. And so we moved around pretty frequently in the Midwest, but a majority of my years I grew up going to middle school and high school in Indiana. So I claim Indiana as home, though I lived in Illinois, Ohio, and a lot of other places in between. And ended up going to Purdue University, which is, it depends on where you draw the line in the state of Indiana. You're either an Indiana University fan, and IU. We don't accept anybody from Indiana that's a Notre Dame fan. I'm not excluding anybody on your series, but I'm just kidding. We love all Indiana colleges except for Notre Dame. No, I'm just kidding. And went to Purdue, graduated from Krannert School of Business. And, when I was at Purdue, I had some really cool opportunities. I interned at Disney World, so got to learn everything there was to know about Walt Disney.
Wait. Were you an Imagineer?
No, I
Uh,
wasn't an Imagineer. I know, right? Like I worked in the finance department, and that's what they titled it as. But the fancy thing was, Pierce, is I sold ticket sales at Main Gate Magic Kingdom, and people always say, hey, what Disney teach you? And I said, well, the magic's real. And they said, what do you mean? I said, the first day I was there, they do this orientation where they take you into the tunnels and they show you all of these things. And now when we were in the tunnels, they were prepping for the parade. And it was the first time I ever saw Peter Pan kiss Aladdin in costume. It was kind of a unique experience. So, it was, you learn a lot from Disney World, but what an amazing organization that really taught me a lot about business, finance, and just what they do and how they train their people is to get 55,000 employees to point a particular way to not offend anybody is just something really amazing. But so in college, I got a job with a consulting firm, and it was pretty awesome experience. It was a startup consulting firm, some guys that had programmed SAP for one of the larger three firms at that time. And this was in the early 2000s. And I went through training in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which was where their office was located, and finished 3 months of intensive learning how to code SAP. So here I am coming out of college with a business degree, minor in management information systems, knowing nothing about SAP, and I'm learning how to write code in German. And the idea they were very big in the pharmaceutical vertical. And they were really focused on how do we help pharmaceutical firms. Well, SAP did a partnership with this company called Labware Limbs, which is a software. Make long story short, finished my training, and they told me I was relocating to San Diego, California, and I was going to be working on projects in San Diego, California. So fly out to San Diego, rent a house in Solana Beach. It was amazing. We put lawn chairs up on the roof. We could see the ocean. here I am in my early 20s, just graduating, not a nickel to my name. And I've got a lawn chair and a beer in Solana Beach, watching people surf off into the distance. And I'll never forget it. I got in on a Friday and I got a call from the managing partner on the West Coast that I needed to come to his house on Saturday. So get his address, didn't know much about the San Diego area. Well, he lived in Carlsbad, and which is a really nice area in northern San Diego. And go there, this huge gate to get in. And, you know, I'm driving in, I'm like, whoa, this is a whole different level here. And get there, and there's like a guy, you know, dressed, answering the door. I mean, it was one of those types of environment. These people had been really successful in their life and deserved everything, cleaning people everywhere. And we get in there, and his kids are running around, and he's yelling at his kids. This is literally the second time I've ever met this guy in my life, right? And his wife's in there, and he's like, hey, look, here's the deal. I'm really sorry to break the news to you. And I was like, hey, wait. Before you fire me, give me a chance. He's like, fire you? I'm like, yeah, you got to give me a chance to sell myself. Like, let's try to figure this out. He's like, I'm not firing you, but I'm relocating you. And I'm like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, here's your plane tickets. You need to be on the plane tomorrow. You're going to work in a project in Puerto Rico. And he's like, I tried everything I could because I know you just got here. And we'll fill you in on the details, but you're going to have to commute from San Diego to Puerto Rico every week. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't realize what that really meant in terms of 12 hours of travel.
They're not close. They're not close at all.
Kind of opposite. So here I am. I get to California, and make a long story short, they send me to Puerto Rico. It was an amazing experience. First 3 months there, they had a contract with Ritz-Carlton. So I'm living at the Ritz-Carlton for 3 months. There's a casino there. And just awesome experience. Well, they got the bright idea to save money, so they put us all in oceanfront condos. So now I have my own oceanfront condo. I'm in my early 20s, and I'm living in Puerto Rico and working for our client down there, Wyeth Pharmaceuticals. They make Advil, Effexor, and Centrum vitamins and those types of things. And the Wyeth organization was incredible people. And so kind of fast forward, how I got into where I am today is I just realized as I kind of looked around at the consulting space and those kind of things, my next project, I was headed over to Europe, and I was either going to Spain or Ireland, and it was going to be an extended contract period. So it could have been 2 to 4 years where I was going to be either in Spain or Ireland. And I had kind of gotten burned out traveling 12 hours in plane rides. And, you know, Puerto Rico at that time, you couldn't fly direct. So you either had to fly into Dallas or you had to fly into Phoenix and then connect. And so I reached out to a friend of mine from high school whose family was wildly successful. They were like the successful family growing up. And he was in the real estate business and the development business. And I just cold reached out to him and called him, looked him up, found him online, cold reached out to him, said, hey, I want to fly. At this point, he was living in South Florida, in Jupiter, Florida. And I said, I want to come fly and meet with you. I want to talk to you about something. He's like, who is this? I'm like, hey, I hung out with your daughter in high school. You know, it's just, and he's like, all right, well, whatever. So I ended up getting a plane ticket, flying to South Florida from Puerto Rico.
And how old are you at this point?
Yeah, I was, let me think here. So I was 23, maybe 23, 24. If I was 24, I was soaking wet 24, like just turning 24.
So you just did 2-3 years worth of just travel, crazy couple years of it. Now it's like I'm tapping out more to life.
Grinding. You know, it's like, look, the consulting life back then was amazing, and the firm was incredible. But I think had I not had to have to commute to Puerto Rico twice a week, from San Diego to Puerto Rico, I probably would have been able to run a lot longer. But as you know, you have these per diems and you have to spend them, right? And when my commute was the longest, I had the highest per diem. I mean, I can tell you stories about us getting on planes and going to the Caribbean, going to any island in the Caribbean you could imagine. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, sounds terrible. I would have quit too.
Yeah, it's terrible, right? But you know, you're like, why would you ever leave that? But oh man, just some amazing experiences. So anyways, I fly there and I walk into his office and I introduce to the receptionist who I am. He comes out and he takes me into this conference room on this corner. I'll never forget it. And he's like, hey, what are you here for? And I was like, hey, I want to make you a job offer. He's like, but I'm not hiring. I said, yeah, but I want to talk to you about, this is what I'm doing, just kind of catching up real quick. And I'd like to come work for you, but there's 2 conditions. And he's like, well, you don't get to dictate conditions to me. And I was like, well, here's the deal. I'm going to come work for you for free. But you have to teach me everything you know and what you've learned. You've been wildly successful. And, you know, in the books I've read and kind of like Think and Grow Rich and some of these other amazing books that, you know, you have to give to get. And, you know, you've been successful. I want to learn from you and reduce my learning curve here, but I'm going to come work for you for free. He's like, nah, I'm not interested in it, but I really appreciate you coming to South Florida and good luck. So fly back to Puerto Rico. And then about 2 weeks later, he's like, hey, I got a project I want to test you on. So he ends up giving me this project and sends me to the middle of like literally gator infested, mosquito snake infested Florida to do this census study about whether or not it made sense for his development. So here I am, I fly at this point into Orlando and then drive south, and amazing people there. And I do this study over a weekend where I could have been on a Caribbean island drinking some kind of beer and then going back to work. And do this report and put it to him. And then about 2 weeks go by, maybe 3 weeks, and I don't hear anything. Then he calls me, said, this report was really, really good. I'd like to offer you a job. He said, but you need to be here inside like a week. And I was like, well, my firm's been really good to me. I want to give them plenty of notice. And he's like, okay. And he's like, but don't you want to know how much I pay you? I'm going to pay you. And I said, well, I told you I'd come work for you for free. He's like, yeah, but I can't have you do that. But he ended up paying me a little bit of money. It was significantly less than what I was making as a consulting firm. So here I am. I call my mom and I'm like, hey, I'm leaving Puerto Rico, and I put in my notice. It's already done. And I'm leaving this amazing consulting firm that, you know, I have the token corporate America job. And I'm going to go work for a guy from who we grew up in for a lot less money in a marketplace I've never been. She's like, are you crazy? Like, what the heck are you doing? So went there, literally just went there, had everything packed up in California, went back to California, packed everything up, put it on a U-Haul and shipped it to Florida. So here I am, coast to coast, Caribbean to Caribbean, right? And I get there and it's an amazing time. He teaches me, really invest in me and spend some time. And then he comes to me and he says, hey, we're going to make a change in the business. And I said, okay. He said, we want to start a development company really in the northern Georgia market and like Eastern Tennessee, Western Carolina. And I want you to run it for me. And here's the deal. I'm going to invest all the money, but I'm not going to do any of the work. And you have to run the whole business for yourself. And so we get that business started, and it's at the same time, Pierce, that things started to plane down in the market. So here we are. I get this opportunity, this golden opportunity.
So you're talking 2007, 2008,
2007, right? Like the market's starting to turn. And so I get married, relocate to Florida, and to Georgia. And here I am, we're trying to sell real estate in a declining market. We're not selling anything.
Yeah. Actually, I was buying in Georgia during those years. I was that sucker. So you just met me at the wrong time, or else you would have been fine.
So yeah, there it is. So yeah, we could have got your money. No. So it's just a really cool, not to scare people away, it's just a really cool God story. They ended up coming to us and offering us the opportunity to buy the business. And, I just believed that the business was going to turn around. We had made zero revenue, wasn't getting a paycheck. And, here I am going through this period over the last 12 to 18 months, just getting married. And we're living in a rental house in Ball Ground, Georgia, of all places. And we buy the business on contract, and some things had lined up to where, kind of long story short, several years ago when I came to work for him, it was the most money I'd ever made, because he had bonused me and given me some real estate that I was able to sell. And I was just becoming a new believer, and not to spiritualize everything, I cheated on my tithes. So here I am, I get saved, come to know Christ, and I cheat on my tithe. The offering comes around and I don't give God the 10% that I was supposed to give. And all this time it's gone by in years and been weighing heavy on my heart. And I went to my wife and I just said, hey, look, for what it's worth, we need to make this right, and we need to write a check, and we don't have any money. So let's just write a check and make this right. I can't live like this anymore. And so we write a check. Literally, we clean out our bank account. And that weekend we had a buying event for the development company. We had sold nothing for months and months and months. clean out our bank account, make our tithe right to a local church that we had started to attend. And that weekend we sold 12 houses, went from 0 to selling 12. And we took all that money, ended up paying them off for the business. And then we just kept having sales. It was a crazy thing. Even though the real estate market was declining, people were wanting out of markets that weren't doing well and kind of getting back. We call it the halfback trend, right? People were moving to Florida from the Midwest to the Northeast and then trying to get halfway back. So anyways, business was phenomenal. From that day forward, business was incredible. And I'm an avid hunter. I'm terrible at it. I don't have walls of trophies. I'm morely like I spend time in the woods. I'm more of a nature watcher, I guess is what you should say, because I'm a terrible freaking hunter. But anyways, the way I got in the roofing business, really this. I was hunting one day, and it's probably one of the few times in my life I could finally say I heard the Holy Spirit speak to me. And clearly, as you and I are talking today, scared the hell out of me hey, what you've been doing, you're no longer going to be doing. So go home in our rental house in Ball Ground and tell my wife, hey, we're going to shut the development business down. Holy Spirit spoke to me. I'll never forget it. She's like, are you crazy? Like, we just finally turned this corner. I'm like, that's what we're going to do. So that night we cold turkeyed shut down the business. We liquidated everything we had in the business, sold everything as fast as we could, and just paused. So here I am in October of 2008. I'm unemployed, just liquidated our business, shut it down, coming off of a great year, and I don't have anything. I don't know what to do. So I am volunteering at church. I'm hunting a bunch, and we didn't have a lot of money, right? So it wasn't like we made millions of dollars. Looking back, it was pretty stupid when you think about how all this came together. And I had met some people in the roofing business, and they seem to be doing really successful, big trucks, driving nice cars, living in big houses, like really flaunting a lot of money. And I was like, wow, maybe there's something to the roofing business. So kind of watched these folks and kind of realized if I was going to get in the roofing business, because I didn't know anything about it, maybe I don't want to do it like that. So at that time, in the fall of 2008, Hurricane Ike hits and just devastates Houston. And so I start cold calling people, looking people up and trying to figure out, hey, who's a big roofer in Houston? And I'll never forget, I called this company down in Houston and I'm like, hey, I'm interested in coming to sell for you. I didn't know anything about the roofing business at this point, like nothing.
Yeah, so this is the second time you're going and asking for a job for free.
So yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So I know you're like, man, get to the point here, Derrick. So this is my story.
So fully 87 to 90% of the people are like, this guy is straight batshit crazy at this point.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Throwing it out there.
So I call this guy. His first name was Matt, and I won't give his last name, right? But anyways, he's like, I'm like, look, hey, I'm thinking about starting a small roofing company in Atlanta, Georgia, and I don't know anything about it, and I want to come work for you for free. I'll pay all my own way, and I'll invest, but I want you to put me through training. You can keep all the commissions of everything I sell. I just want to learn from a professional industry, a company that's professional how to do it. He's like, what? Absolutely, we'll hire you. Get here immediately. Buy a plane ticket, and I fly to Houston, right? Houston, Texas. And while I'm on there, I'm reading this book called The Business of Re-Roofing. It's this book, a guy that was in the storm restoration business. And I'm reading the chapters of all this stuff, this war stories. And I'm laughing out loud on the plane about there ain't no way in hell this stories are real. This doesn't happen. Like, I can't even imagine there's an industry where the things this guy's writing are telling me. So I get there and get in late, and they're like, here's your apartment. And we like walk around, and there's like beer bottles everywhere. And it's like, there's no mattress. Like, you can sleep on the floor. I'm like, no. Don't worry about this, guys. I'm going to go get a hotel room. So I go stay at a Marriott or a Hilton or whatever, get a hotel, come to check in, work next morning. I walk in, and there's another guy in the room, and then the manager hands me some paperwork. He gives me a T-shirt. He says, all right, man, go get some deals signed. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, all you got to do is just really easy. The insurance companies are paying for every roof in Houston. You just got to knock the door, tell the people they have damage. You don't even need to get on the roof. Get them to sign this paper, and we're gonna get them new roofs, right? And I'm like, what? And I'm like, where do I go? He's like, you can go anywhere, man. Just throw a dart at it, and they're gonna buy these roofs from Hurricane Ike. So this guy, and he's like, all right, you can come with me. And he has one of those older school like Ford Escorts that were like a hatchback, right?
Yeah.
We
Nice.
get in this thing, and I'm like, there's no magnets on it or nothing. We drive to this neighborhood, and he's like, all right, let's go knock some doors. And he knocks this door. This guy comes out and he's like, look, you got damage everywhere from Hurricane Ike. And I'm like, I'm watching this. And he's like, guy's like, really? He's like, yeah, there. And let me show you. And he goes in the back of his Escort, gets out this little ladder, those telescoping ones, right? I mean, you can't even get 6 feet up, puts it up against the house. And he goes right up to the gutter where, because, you know, most of the houses in Houston, you can get up within like 7 feet, right? 8 feet. Just barely reaches over and marks this one shingle right there at the gutter line. He's like, you see that? This damage. This guy's like, no. And he's like, just sign this. I'll trust me. You get you a new roof. And I watched this guy sign this document, right? And I'm like, what? I'm like, Toto, I'm not in Kansas anymore. Like, this is a whole different world for me. So we just keep knocking doors and he just keeps signing paperwork. And I'm like, this is roofing? This is restoration roofing? And so then the manager calls us that evening. He's like, how'd you do? And the guy's like, oh, we got so many. I'll never forget this contingency sign. He's like, oh, that's a good day. I want to take and get you guys steak. Come meet me at the steakhouse. So we go to this steakhouse and kind of walk in, doing is like, can I get you a drink? I'm like, sure, I'll have a beer. And talking. He's like, so what'd you think? You know, this is how you get trained, right? Survival of the fittest. It's the way we do it. This is boot camp for the roofing industry. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he goes, all right, so here's the deal. Tomorrow, I need you guys to get these contracts signed. And he hands us over these contracts. And I'm looking at them, and I don't know anything about the business, right? I'm as naive as it gets. And I'm like, I got a question for you. He's like, what's that? I was like, why is the logo different than the one that we had for today? He's like, oh, man. He's like, corporate, they're way up north, and they don't know what's going on down here in Houston. And this is my market. And I started my own roofing business, and we're taking their leads from corporate, and we're gonna sign them on my paperwork, and I'm gonna pay you double what they're paying all of us. I'm like, pay me double? I'm down here for free. You're not even paying me anything. How you? No. We're gonna make sure you get paid. And I'm like, what about training? He's like, this is how we train in the roofing industry. And so I go back to the hotel and I call my wife and I'm like, I think I got to come back. And I tell her what's happening. And that night I bought a GoDaddy website and created a website on GoDaddy. And the Lord birthed Ridge Valley Exteriors on February 23rd, 2009 in a hotel in Houston with 0 roofing experience.
So did you ever visit this guy in prison?
No, I left it alone. I was like, I'm getting out of this. I'm getting out of here. Right. And, you know, it's amazing how many stories I hear from people that are similar in the roofing business. And, you know, unfortunately, it's those minor bad stories that give a great industry a bad rap, right? Because there are some amazing people in the roofing business. Well, anyways, what I didn't know that had happened while I was in Houston for those few days was back on February 18th of 2009, South Atlanta had one of the biggest hailstorms that's ever happened.
Yeah.
And fly back. And I realized in my time in the development consulting world, good people drive operations. And so I really sought out to find, because I didn't have any experience, I needed to hire experience. And so we hired a group of people that had a lot of experience that we were able to vet and really kind of look at. And so we brought in a group of us, and then here we are. We start from 0, knowing nothing our first year, and we go to almost 5 million. And, you know, that's pretty crazy growth, not knowing anything about the roofing business. And I'll never forget it. The very first roof we ever did, she's still a friend of ours today. She actually goes to the church we go to now, and her roof was a manufactured defect roof. The very first job we ever did. It took us 2 years to get that claim resolved, to ended up getting paid. And, you know, nothing against the manufacturer or anything like that. It's just, it was my awakening into the roofing business. At that point, I should have realized maybe I should have got out. But
oh, come on, Derrick. Those things don't fail. You just install them wrong.
That's it. That's it. So that's my long-winded story about how this crazy guy from the Midwest got in the roofing business.
So let me summarize. So you go to college. You go to a great college. You get out as a Boilermaker. You get a great job as a consultant. You decide you're a little too successful going back and forth to the Caribbean and sucking down Mai Tais and Coronas.
Rockstar life.
Decide, rockstar life. Then you decide, okay, I'm gonna go to South Florida. I'm gonna quit my job and offer to work for free. Then I'm gonna go and do something like sell houses. And midway through that, I'm gonna give all my money away. And then I'm gonna randomly decide that I don't want to do that anymore, and I'm gonna be a roofer. So, and then you go and get your second job for free. Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
So that's how you get successful in the roofing industry. Well, you guys have exploded over the last in a really short period of time, and I gotta believe that some of that's your understanding of really your background and implementing technology and scaling your business and all that. I mean, you guys have gone from obviously not knowing anything about roofing and going on GoDaddy.com saying I can do this to multiple office, multiple states, spanning the Southeast, and pretty explosive growth. Um, I want to hear what do you got? What do you got planned next? What's next for Ridge Valley? Where are you guys going from here?
Oh yeah. So we've really been blessed with amazing people. Our people every day drive our business and really their business. And, I would say people ask me, there's two types of contractors out there, and there's some that are in between. There's those that are just, let's do tons and tons of volume and just be really, really big and scale the operation, which is great. There's a big need for that in the industry, people that can scale quickly. And then there's kind of this other segment, and I had a great guy from a roofing contractor in Indianapolis really distill into me kind of this mindset. He's built this amazing business over almost 30 years and really poured into me, and he really helped me realize that if I want to have a business that doesn't just do a bunch of volume, but really has longevity for generations and is really committed to the community, I need to create an experience. And so we're really focused, as crazy as it sounds, we want to be the best boutique roofing experience in North America. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but we want to be worth what people pay us and deliver that kind of value. And so we really try to bring a unique, because at the end of the day, shingles are a commodity. Anybody can sell these particular manufacturers and install these particular products. For us, it's about the experience. We always tell everybody, we'll never win the volume race, but when you have like almost 1,000+ reviews across all the sites that are positive, to do as much business as we do and not piss some people off along the way and keep a positive status, we're doing some things right. And even though we do some things wrong, so for us, it's about our experience. And we're really committed as we look out over the next 12 months and 18 months, how do we continue to bring a unique experience to our clients to where they become raving fans for us? These folks then refer us to their families in other states and so forth. And so really evaluating how our experience is delivered to our clients at a localized level. And then the second thing we're really working hard on is creating an ownership model for our management team. So we really believe that our management team should share in the opportunities of the market they lead, and creating a business environment where not only do they get healthy compensation and rewards for the performance of their market, but they have a stake in the game for what they're doing. And, I had someone in my career invest in me in the development business. And as I look out, especially at some of these younger guys that I have that are, college athletes, really polished individuals, I want to give them the same opportunity that was given to me, and help mentor them and help them do that. So that's our focus right now, is finding who those people are and the locations to continue to plant a seed, not necessarily a storm re-roof seed, but in, what I call ancillary markets where there's an opportunity that we can come in and compete with some of the bigger local guys, but really offer a different element inside the roofing business, a unique experience for our clients, and really invest in the community. Every market we're in, we're highly involved in the philanthropic nonprofit opportunities that we do. And that's our focus. And then for me personally, our Roofing for a Cure program has blown up bigger than anything I could have ever imagined. And I'm watching and seeing, my dialogue and conversations as the leader of the organization really shift and focus on that. How can we make this Roofing for a Cure program even bigger and get the word out to really to help? And originally I thought it was just going to be a Ridge Valley thing. And now what I'm seeing is roofing contractors from across the country are reaching out to us. How can we partner with this program? How can we get involved in what we're doing? And we're seeing a movement of really solid business leaders in the roofing space want to make an impact and helping sick kids get better and an impact in their community, and share ideas together on how we can leverage that philanthropic platform to make a difference in the communities. So that's where we're headed, and that's what we're focused on.
Makes sense. I think that, that to scale the type of business you're talking about is difficult because it's really built on one personality, and you're effectively taking what made you successful and you're trying to replicate that in multiple markets. And finding a source of talent and leadership is super, super critical. Um, as I was listening to you, we're doing some work, and Dr. Gajar, Deval Gajar in Clemson University is teaching the first ever roofing course in his construction college in Clemson. We
That's
have
amazing.
we A number of folks in the roofing industry, Bill Good and Eagle View. We guest lectured at this roofing school, and just yesterday I got reached out by one of the students saying, "Hey, I'm looking for some internship opportunities. I'll go anywhere. Give me a shot." So maybe I'll pass that on to you and anybody who's listening. If I can connect you with that professor, he's a great guy doing a great thing, and we expect that whole course to get kind of broadcast to other universities across the country, and then hopefully we'll be finding new leaders that can come in and help grow businesses, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we need that. We need to bring sexy back to the roofing industry, right? I mean, when we're competing against tech and some of these other, you
Just had
know,
an image, by the way. And
yeah,
just
right. Yeah.
yeah.
And but the reality is that the roofing industry is an amazing industry, and it's a needed industry. And how do we compete and gravitate towards sucking some of that good talent out of these collegiate universities and stuff that's out there, and bring these folks into this industry? That's the challenge, I think, is all owners and businesses that operate inside this space face as we go into the future.
All about scale. It's not just roofers. I mean, it's everybody. Scale and finding leadership and growing that talent is easily, and it sounds trite. It's easily the most important thing that we can do. It makes all the difference in the world, whether we're going to be successful or not. But that's very cool. So, um, I've had you we've been going for a little while. But I wanted to, this is my favorite part, right? So this is like the disaster zone, right? So I want to hear about a situation that totally exploded. One of those jobs that just blew up, that we can all laugh at your misfortune after the fact type of a deal. Just give me
Oh
one of
yeah.
those, and what'd you learn from it?
So I started journaling all the crazy stuff that's happened, right? So
Okay.
if I look out over the last 11 years, and I think we're licensed now in 30 some plus states, and I start thinking about it, it's like, where do you begin and which story do you tell, right? But I keep going back to this one story. People love to hear this story. Misery. People love to laugh at people that experience some crazy stuff, and this one story is kind of, everybody loves to hear it over and over again. And even when I'm drinking around some of our buddies, they're like, "Tell that story again, man. That's just crazy." And so go backwards real quick to when I was flying to Houston and reading the book of Re-Roofing. There was a story this guy was telling in the book, and it was about a crew member who, not to get graphic, but this is the story. You asked for it, so let's laugh at my misfortune, where
Yeah,
a crew member
bring
took a
it.
dump. Literally, the crew member went number 2, took a dump at the customer's house, and he was talking about just how terrible this was and all the events that happened. And he's using a lot of vulgarity, and I'm laughing reading this story, and I'm like, this will never ever happen. This can't be true. Well, here I am. It's 2012, and we're in Nashville and multiple places in North Carolina and South Carolina, Georgia, and several other states that year, and I get this call from this woman who worked for us on the Eastern Carolinas, and she's in a panic. And she's like, Derric, where are you? Where are you? And I'll never forget, I was in Nashville at this time. And she's like, you need to get on a plane right now and fly to where we have this office location. And I'm like, why? What's going on? She's like, look, that story you used to always joke about in all of our sales meetings you read in the book of business, re-roofing. I said, yeah, I didn't think anybody ever listened to it. She goes, nah. Well, that story became your reality today. And I said, what? She's like, yeah. Here's the deal, Derric. And I was like, and she goes into this long story. And at the end of it, I'm like, wait a second. So let me get this straight. One of our crews went behind the shed on the house, used the bathroom, took a crap, wiped, left the pile there. The dog got let out. The dog went to the shed and ate it, rolled around in it, came into the house through the doggy door with toilet paper and human feces on them, rolled all over the couch and the floor, threw up, and is deathly sick from human feces in the homeowner's house. That's exactly what happened. I said, all right. I'm on an episode of MTV Punk'd, right? Like, hey, come on, right? She's like, no. I'm just telling you, the guy's lawyer is on his way to the house, and you're going to need to call the homeowners like right now, and you need to get here on a plane as fast as you can. This is nuclear. So I'm like, oh, that's probably why I don't have any hair left, right? I'm like, oh man, this is real. This is happening. You know, what do I do? How do I respond to this? I get on my knees. I'm just praying, Lord, just tell me what I need to tell this guy. How do I get us out of this? I mean, you got me into this business. You're going to get me out of this. Like, how do I do this? And so I'm just praying about it. And I hear that, hey, this is what I want you to do. So I pick up the phone. I'm nervous. I'm freaking out. I mean, this is about as nervous I could ever be. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. And I call the guy and he goes, hello? And I'm like, oh man. And where we were, just kind of define where we were is one of the largest military bases in North America. And the gentleman happened to be an active duty military professional and had incredible training and was just incredibly well respected in that base's area, right? So
were you in your Nashville area?
I was in Nashville, but this happened in the East Coast in one of our locations in the Carolinas.
Oh, it's like Fayetteville or somewhere like that. So you're talking about like
right outside of Camp Lejeune, where
Force Recon Marines,
you know, a bunch. Nice. So here I am. I'm like,
I'm the last guy you want to have a shit shed incident with, by the way.
I'm like, I'm fixing to get my ass kicked when I go meet this guy. That's what I'm thinking, right? Like, I'm not coming out of this, right? So I call the guy and he's like, hello. And I'm like, hey, before you let me hear everything I need to hear, I need to tell you a story. And he pauses for a second and he says, all right, let me hear it. And I go through the whole story about how I got in the roofing business, how I read this book, The Business of Re-Roofing, back in early 2009. And I read this story and I thought it was made up and it never was going to happen. And here I am in 2012, it's happening to me. And I said, I deserve everything you're about to bring my way. I don't have the answers. I don't know what to do, but we're going to make it right. And there's this weird silence. And he said, I was ready to whoop your ass when you came here. Literally, mind my French. Sorry on the podcast for everybody that watches this, you know. I always, everyone wants to give me a t-shirt that says I love Jesus, but I swear a little. I mean, I'm sorry. So at the end of the day, so he's like, and I wasn't expecting that. And that might've been the best intro anyone could have ever said. I trust you're going to fix it. And when you get here, we'll meet face to face, just make it right. Well, we ended up getting his whole entire house, like that room repainted, all new carpet, new furniture, new everything. Oh, and he got a roof for free. And, you know, really just had this great remodeling project done by Ridge Valley Exteriors. And I'll never forget, this guy became a raving fan for us. I mean, not only did we make it right, but you want to talk about literally a crappy story that could have gone really bad. That was one I'll never forget, getting that phone call and just, I mean, the lab of all things decides to eat it, roll around in it, carry it in the house, throw it all up, vet bills, the whole deal.
You know, we've only done 3 of these, but you definitely get the award, and I don't think it's going to get broken anytime soon. I will say that next time you have a shed shitter incident, you can just forward them the podcast, and you'll be off the hook. You know,
that's it.
Be like,
no
problem. We're good.
Now what'll happen is people will be like, they'll use this. Can you believe that company has this stuff happen to their clients, right? Like all the competitors, this is going to go viral. I mean, look. We've gone 8 years, knock on wood. We've made some changes in terms of how we operate, but you know, you can only control so much, and what we can control is how we respond. And we wanted to respond by doing the right thing. You know, at the end of the day, he got a really nice couch, you know, probably much nicer than the one they originally had. Dog was fine. Dog lived. I know people are asking what happened to the dog. The dog was great. And, you know, the irony on the whole thing, I'll end it with this, is, you know, we have a lab ourselves, and we call him a pweeter because he's a poop eater. I know that's gross, but, you know, I should have thought maybe this was an innuendo. When you have your own lab eats poop, that, you know, another dog in a horror story was going to be the same. So that's my one story of many for your people that are watching this to laugh about the roofing industry.
The one thing that makes these things fun is that you literally have no idea where it's going to go, and I didn't see it going here. Well, hey, thanks for coming on, man. Before we wrap it up, though, one last thing. You read the book of re-roofing. What else are you listening to? What are you reading right now? What's giving you inspiration?
Yeah, so I keep rereading Jocko's books, Extreme Ownership, and we have recycled this through our leadership team, and I think we're now on our fourth turn on reading that. We're just a big fan of really the military as a whole and how they structure leadership and what they're doing. We have read Good to Great as an organization, which is a little bit of an older book by Jim Collins. And, I'm encouraging our leadership people to read the book, which is an older book by Napoleon Hill. I mentioned it earlier, called Think and Grow Rich, really about just how our mindsets are, not rich in wealth, but just rich in how we control our mind. And, in roofing, there's some tough days and there's some great days. And it's so much in terms of how we set our expectations, and things are only as big as we make them. And those are really the three books that we're working on. And then really, personally, I'm writing my own book, right? Not trying to be a bestseller, but just really telling the story about what it's like to be a younger entrepreneur in America, and some of the things we face and challenges, and telling some of these war stories, but really talking about just what, I've learned about business and structuring business. And if it helps one person avoid that one error, then it'll be successful, worth my time. I'm not going to try to sell it or anything like that. Just really just help good folks that are trying to come in this industry understand some things, because I had people do it for me on how to avoid those pitfalls.
Outstanding. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on, man. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot to do. You're probably thinking about the next job you're going to go take for free or something like that. Just probably author, frankly. No, thanks so much for coming on board. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I'm going to link to Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership. He's got a couple more, Dichotomy and whatnot, but Extreme Ownership is really good. So I'll link to that in the description. Any comments, you can hit me at peers@riseuporunpodcast.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn. Find me at Eagle View. As always, thanks again. See you next time.